Hello everybody, this is Lady Kaylah here and welcome to the Geekdom. Today I'm going to do a first impressions video of The Hobbit instead of a review because I feel like I need to re-watch it. So this video is definitely going to be more scattered, and I usually do these when I do the midnight releases because I'm too tired to do a proper review. But I feel like even though it's pretty early and I didn't get to see The Hobbit until like a week after it released, that there's still too much that I just need to rewatch it in order to give a proper review. So this is going to be a first impressions, and it's going to be scattered, and it's not going to cover everything. It's just going to be me telling you my initial thoughts before I actually come up with something more definite for a review that I'm going to do later on. I really don't mind dishing out money to see The Hobbit again, so that should be an indicator of how much I like it, because I do feel like I would spend money on it again, and it wasn't terrible, but I did have, there was a lot of ups and downs for me, so I am just going to do a first impressions, and later on I will have a review for you guys. You guys feel free to let me know in the comments below your thoughts and whatnot, and we can have lovely discussion. So anyways, Bjorn. And forgive my pronunciation, I've read The Hobbit over many years with a certain pronunciation in my head, and then I get this movie who gives me different pronunciations, and I've only seen the movie once, so I'm going to stick with what I've made up in my head for years. So, anyways, Bjorn. He is a skin changer, and he's the reason why werebears are the only creature in like fantasy that is usually good in most fantasy, and all other were creatures are evil. So, yeah. And Bjorn was one of my favorite parts in the book, and I felt like he totally got skimped out in the movie. I felt like they could have cut down on some other scenes and really just, played up Bjorn, because he got so little screen time that it was almost pointless to even have him in the movie at all. So I love the way they presented him. I love the way he was introduced. I love the way his house looked. But at the same time, it was kind of like just this blip in the movie where it's just like, okay, I get that they needed protection, but why did they stay there? Like, did they really gain anything from that? Whereas in the books, it was this beautiful, magical, charming, just great scene in the books, and I felt like it was definitely lacking in the movie, and that was my only disappointment. The rest I really enjoyed about Bjorn. I just felt like it was a little lacking. And I feel like the whole understory with the orcs and whatnot definitely could have been played down a lot less than it was in this movie. I mean, I don't think the movie needed to be super, super long in the first place, and, this whole side story with the orcs or whatever, while I thought it was fine for Thorin's, plot line, it just kind of almost got ridiculous in this movie, where it was just like, are they really necessary? Like, the dwarves' adventures were pretty heavy-handed in this movie anyways, like meeting the spiders, which I thought was done really, really well. Actually, I think getting the name for his sword and seeing the butterflies and getting captured and having to save his friends again, I think that was done well. Sorry, not could have been. I think that part was done really well. And then meeting the elves, I think they could have played up the whole elf part and cut down on the orc part, because the woodland elves are pretty wild and kind of scary in their own way, because they're a lot different than the kind of like the high elves and like the elves that like Galadriel is part of. The wood elves are just kind of wild and scary, and I really like the way the book, introduces them. And I'm not saying that, the movie should like do a play-by-play of the book, I don't mind variation at all. But I felt like, the orcs could have definitely been played down a little bit more, and, Bjorn and the elves could have been played up a little bit more, and, because I definitely, like, who doesn't like seeing, like, into other, like, creatures' worlds or lands or whatever. I mean, I definitely like, seeing a little bit of the elves' homeland and a little bit of their lore, so on and so forth. So, their escape I thought was done really well. It was silly, it was funny, I love it. People forget that The Hobbit is a children's book, and so I don't mind, I actually adore when things get beautifully charming and silly and fun, instead of trying to force so much action and darkness, like when Gandalf goes off, because we don't see Gandalf's journeys in The Hobbit, and, I don't know why they're adding, like, so much darkness and whatnot. It is a kid's book. That's why I prefer the silly and lighthearted scenes in the movie, because that's how The Hobbit is supposed to be. It's supposed to be silly and lighthearted. Yeah, awesome. So, and then after that, we meet Bard, who is beautiful, by the way. He is gorgeous. And I know in the books, Bard gets this just tiny, 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 tiny part in the books. And I'm so glad that they played him up, because just like in the books, it's almost like, who is this guy? Like, why does he like show up? And I'm not going to spoil anything because things happen in the future. But when you read the book, it's like, okay, why does this guy like show up? I mean, we have all these dwarves and Bilbo who are main characters, and then this guy gets a huge part. So in the movie, he actually gets like a backstory. He kind of gets a setup for what's going to happen in the future. He gets all this, we get to see him go through some adventures, even by himself without the dwarves. And he gets a family and all this great stuff. And, so much more than the book gave to Bard. And so I like that, because it's going to make so much more sense when Bard, shows up again, and so on and so forth. And I love it. And I always had a huge crush on Bard, and I think part of it was because he was given so little that, like, my mind, like, created everything else for him because it wasn't given to us. But here it's going to make a lot more sense for the movie, so I did love them playing up Bard, even though it kind of goes against the book. But I don't care. I think it makes so much more sense to flesh out Bard. As for Legolas, and I forget her name because she's not in the books, and Tario, I don't remember her name, I'm sorry, she's the female elf, and she is gorgeous. I love her. She's a great fighter. I was scared because people were saying that they were going to make like a love triangle between Kaylah, Legolas, and her, and I was like, that's so stupid. I really don't want like the only female character in The Hobbit, because there is no female character in The Hobbit, the book, but there is in the movie. I don't want her to be the only great thing or memorable thing about her is that she is in a love triangle. That's stupid. But they actually didn't do what I thought they were going to do. I mean, yes, there kind of is a love triangle, but she's given her own parts. She's given her own, lines, and the love triangle thing really isn't that serious or overplayed or overbearing at all. I think it's kind of cute because, the animosity between dwarves and elves. I really liked the way they started setting things up. It was really cute. So what else do we have? Then we have Smaug. We have the actual, dragon that we were gonna see, and I think he, for looks, was actually pretty okay. Wasn't exactly how I imagined Smaug, but the whole ledge scene where they try to open the door, that would, oh my god, like, I freaked out because that's exactly, like, on point what I imagined that whole ledge looking like. But anyways, back to Smaug. I was a little disappointed because Smaug and Bilbo have this beautiful, absolutely wonderful back and forth with one another. And, you know, he plays up Smaug's pride. Smaug, you know, humors Bilbo for a long time. They go, like, have, like, riddles, and they match wits. And I felt like their whole little speech was definitely lacking. And they decided to go with an action route that included all the dwarves, which I don't mind. I just was really looking forward to the actual speech between Bilbo and Smaug. The rest that happened, I don't mind that they did that or changed that or whatever. But I also didn't like, you know, Bilbo in the books notices that Smaug's chest has a weak spot in it because Smaug shows it off and is all prideful about it. And so he sees it because Smaug's pride, and so it's like literally Smaug's pride kind of gives him away or shows his weak spot. Here, he notices it a bit later and a bit differently, which I didn't really care for, but whatever. He still saw it. I didn't really mind the whole change that they did, because the reason why he has like a chunk missing or a weak spot is completely different from the books, which I don't mind. It's still close enough to make sense for what's to come. And yeah, I was mostly disappointed with the back and forth that I really wanted between them. It's like they spent so much time playing up Gollum and Bilbo in the first one, to the point where it got kind of boring, because their back and forth was great, but they didn't need to drag it on so long. Here, they totally skimped out on the back and forth, and I'm like, really? Really? And then they went for an action scene, which I didn't mind, again, but Smaug's and Bilbo's back and forth is one of my favorite things. And I felt like it ended pretty well, ended pretty strong. Overall, I don't know. I'm still like on an I don't know about this movie. I liked it. I like it to the point where I'm going to watch it again. I will spend money to watch it again. But at the same time, I don't have anything definite to say about it either. So this is just my first impressions after I let it sit in a while, and after I watched it again and, you know, start picking up on more details and appreciating it more. I will definitely have a review for you guys. Like I said, in the comments below, just let me know what you guys think, and if you need to contact me outside of YouTube, my Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, all that stuff is in the in the description below, and thank you for your time. Bye.